Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Beneath the Waves. This is the very first episode that myself and Dave have put together. I am a head teacher of a special needs school in Harrow, known as Shaftesbury High School. I'm currently studying for my doctorate at the UCL Institute of Education, and I also lecture for the National College of Education on their Apprentice Levy Masters. And what we wanted to do this evening was really come together to give leaders in education some time. It's been a remarkable term, one full of a lot of sadness, a lot of challenge, but as ever, as leaders, we're looking to see how we can come out of this stronger and more resourceful, with more opportunities from it. So myself and Dave wanted to put together a webinar that allowed you to give a little bit of time for you, and as we're seeing from the poll, that seems to be needed. So Dave, do you want to introduce yourself before we go any further?
Yeah, so I'm Dave Hughes. I spent most of my career working in the corporate world, in supply chain, in senior supply chain leadership roles. And for the last 18 months, I've been working as a senior practitioner with Complete, working as a coach and on leadership development. So Matt, how are you? Life must have been mad for you over the last few weeks, having to cope with managing the school through these crazy times and also looking after yourself and your family. Just how's it been?
Yes, the priority level of what has been important. I mean, we've had Ofsted this year. That seems to have paled in insignificance compared to COVID-19. The challenge to education has been a huge wave, almost a tsunami of change, really, in what we've been expected to do, what we've expected our learners and our teaching staff to do. And I think that's where Beneath the Waves came from, really, is looking at the level of change that's going on, that wave of change, what's actually happening underneath for us. Myself, I have taken some time this weekend to recalibrate and settle myself back down a little from what was a really chaotic last three weeks in particular. The school's doing well. We're up and running very efficiently from Google Classrooms. The pastoral support from our learning support assistants has been incredible, and really just starting to look beyond our school now as to how we can reach out into the community, which is something that Shaftesbury endeavours to do in all of its work. So the Meaningful Mastery project-based learning that we run to address the 6% employment rate of our young people with various complex difficulties is something that we endeavour to do as part of our values as a school. So now settling down into this point, this is why we thought this is the sort of ripe opportunity to really step out and support leaders.
Yeah, and say a bit more about that, because doing this webinar was your idea. So say a bit about why we're doing it, who it's aimed at, what you're hoping to achieve, what we're hoping to achieve.
Yeah, so I mean, as much as we have done a lot of work on school leadership with yourself, Dave, I think we're not just talking to school leaders at the moment. We're talking to pretty much most of society, but we want to make this webinar more specific to education and the learners and leaders in that. When I say leaders, I mean all staff within the school. I see all staff as leaders, and that's very much the approach we adopt at the school. I think that we're throwing a lot of expectations on staff to suddenly become very digitally literate and creative. So a little bit of that remaining visual to the staff is actually also about modelling that myself, and the webinar and coming up with a sort of creative way to reach out and support our community and colleagues at this point just seemed to make a lot of logical sense to me. Yeah.
Okay. So shall I say a bit about the 4D leadership model that you and I have been working with over the last year or so?
Yes, sure. So do you want me to add some context to your role in that sense of where we've been on a journey in our own, or do you want to bring that in after?
Yeah, it'll come out through the webinar, probably through today,
Sure.
and if not, we can explain it.
Yeah.
I think let's dive in. I think so. Let me talk about the 4D leadership model, which is a model that Complete uses. As leaders, we spend pretty much all of our time doing stuff, either short-term actions. For all of you, whether you're running a school or in education, just keeping a school running, all the myriad of tasks you have to do to do that. In today's environment, it's all the stuff around setting up digital classrooms, doing staff planning during these crazy times, safeguarding of the children as they're in a very different environment. So there's a whole list of tasks we have to do to make sure we're running the school, doing what we're doing, delivering the performance. At the same time, there's longer term actions that we all do, developing the vision and strategy for the future plans, school environment, whatever that is. In the current environment, that's about thinking about, what are the consequences of longer term of everything we're doing and how do we prepare for that. But as leaders, we tend to spend all of our time or most of our time in these two it dimensions. And I feel very proud of the fact of all the things we manage to do at the end of the day. We wake up in the morning and we're busy from morning till night doing stuff. But we tend to spend a lot less time on the we, which is looking after our people, looking after the teams we work with, team cohesion, the culture of the schools we work in, the values, how we all work together in an effective way. And almost no time looking at what we call the I, so our own personal development. So looking after our energy levels, looking after our resilience and well-being, ensuring the quality of our thinking. And unless we
just looking at that statistic, Dave, that's come in from the poll, that's 77% of our attendees this evening are under an hour each day in the time that they give themselves, and 40% are under half an hour of that.
Yeah,
as well.
Interesting. Well, what happens classically in a crisis like we're having at the moment, this just gets absolutely exacerbated because there are so many things that have to be done to keep things going in a crisis that we tend to all think all the people stuff and all the I stuff, we just haven't got time for that. So all of it goes out the window. Whereas in fact, it becomes even more important to spend time looking after yourself, because unless you look after yourself, you're going to be no good to anyone else. So looking after yourself and looking after the we become even more important at this time. I mean, maybe say a bit, Matt, about the work you and I have been doing, the work you've done in your school, and I've been supporting a bit in this area, in both the I and the we, and also how you've adapted over the last 3 or 4 weeks, again, on looking after yourself, but how you're looking after and working with your team during these crazy times.
Yeah, so I think the main priority for myself in developing as a leader has been getting to know myself, understanding my own values and where I've come from on my own journey, and I feel that when I have that vision, which goes back to my work with charity work with students with special needs originally, it very much has fed into being able to understand where my vision for education has come from, but also where my leadership has come from and grown its moral roots from, and where they're anchored in, but also sort of developing with the support of the coaching from Dave is also understanding that can be reshaped and reformed to a later adult version of who I am and what I want to be as a leader, but also the vision of the school and where we go and expand as leaders as a school. So Dave's been coming in and running team sessions with my own team, and it's seen the team development has really taken off in leaps and bounds in how we understand each other, where we come from, where we sit in our own values and understanding of each other. But just that we time has been really important, but it's certainly fed into us taking some I time in developing who we are as an effective leadership team, and how we each play our own role in that, and appreciating each other's strengths, but also being able to challenge each other openly and transparently. And I think in times of crisis, as you say, to be able to call a pause, take a moment to have a break, and actually use that break effectively, which I think is a tool we'll come on to share of how we do that in a moment. But to be able to effectively take a break, reset the mind, and be able to then challenge each other, even in times of crisis, is a necessity for educators and leaders right now. There is a lot of pressure on us with very little information with regards to what we're meant to be doing and what that looks like, really, what's best practice, for example. So we're having to make key decisions with a lot of responsibility, and to be able to make sure that we're thinking creatively and being able to problem solve rather than being reactive has been a massive development in the school team. And I've seen that over the last 3 weeks from my own leadership team. So I'd like to give them a little shout out this evening as well.
Yeah, I know. Are they on the webinar, your team?
Yes, yep, I can see their names there.
Hi, everyone. No, that's great. Yeah,
so,
well, I mean, Dr. Alan Watkins, who's the founder of Complete, he's a medical doctor originally, but has a psychology degree and a PhD in immunology, so very relevant to current times. But Complete have been working in this field for 20 plus years. And all the scientific research, coupled with all of their experience working with clients from all over the world, shows that unless we spend time on our own personal development and looking after ourselves, we can't truly be an effective leader. So I think let's spend a bit more time on the I now. Again, let me share, we're not going to load loads of models on you, but here's just one really, really important model to understand. I'm sure you all, as I do, and as all leaders, go into work every day wanting to make a difference, wanting to have an impact, wanting to deliver some results, whether those results are, delivering a fantastic education to children, or it's about achieving certain academic results, or it's about getting an outstanding in the next Ofsted inspection. We want to deliver some great results. And in order to do that, we focus on, having the right actions and the right behaviors to deliver that outcome, the outcome we want. And our actions and behaviors are shaped by our thinking, of course, and how we think. And that's what we tend to focus on, getting our thinking right, getting our behaviors right. And what very few of us realize is the massive role that our feelings and emotions play in the quality of our thinking, for example.
Yeah, I'd like to cut in there, Dave. I mean, I started studying emotional intelligence in depth in my master's back in 2011, and it was 8 years later that I came across the physiology work that Alan Watkins has put together in what you offer into Complete. So I think it's not common vocabulary in leadership development within education at this point.
No, it isn't. It's almost felt as a bit embarrassing to talk about, but it's so important, because actually our feelings, the way our brain works and our response, our emotional response to information that's coming in to us is far faster than we can process a cognitive thought. So if we're experiencing negative feelings at the moment, which is very natural, stress, anxiety, worry, apprehension, all of those negative feelings actually cause parts of the brain to shut down as we move into fight or flight mode. And actually, therefore, our quality of thinking is impacted, our energy levels are impacted, our health and our long-term resilience are impacted. So being able to move from a negative emotional state into a positive emotional state is really frees us up in terms of our thinking capability, our creativity, our quality. So it's really critical to get that right. And emotions are simply energy in motion in our body, and it's that energy in motion that generates the feelings that we have. And that's all linked to the way our heart operates and the way our physiology operates. So actually at the bottom of this pyramid is the physiology, and that's where we start. And the good news is we can control all of these things. We can manage and control our physiology. We can manage and control our emotions, our feelings, and hence our quality of thinking, our behaviors, and the results that we can deliver at the end of the day. So that model is very much the philosophy of what we talk about, and the tools that we offer sort of sit behind that. So that's very much what we look at doing in the I space.
And it is very much a science. So when I started working with Dave, he gave me a heart rate variability monitor to wear for 24 hours. And I have never seen such a visual version of my emotional state throughout the day, when my heart was coherent and when my heart was in chaos. And funnily enough, that linked up with moments of my day in school and moments with my 2-year-old at home as well, in the same similar pattern, in just what that can do. So yeah, I mean, and to be able to see that visually is something really unique.
Yeah, good. And should we, I mean, heart rate variability is at the core of being able to manage your physiology and hence your emotional state. And you talked about coherence. Let me say a little bit about coherence. I mean, if we can move our heart and our heart rate variability from being a chaotic signal, which it quite often is, into a coherent signal, that enables, effectively drives all of our systems in our body into a coherent state. And you can literally feel it. It's like athletes describe it like being in the flow state. It gives you a feeling of incredible energy, a feeling of being really capable, very powerful, and it's very liberating. So being able to get into that coherent state, and the more time you can spend in a coherent state, the more effective you can be whatever you're doing.
Definitely, and I think it's just. Do you want to explain a little bit around the nervous system for that as well, Dave? Did you want to touch on that?
Well, the signals, everything's interacted, and you receive a signal. I mean, if a tiger were to walk into this room now, the way my brain and emotional system works is immediately there's my amygdala takes over. My amygdala is my early warning system, and that shortcuts all sorts of other things in the brain so that I can immediately go into action and go into fight or flight mode and do what I can to escape the tiger. But in that process, it shuts down the thinking part of the brain. And although we never have tigers walking into our rooms, actually the way our body works is it interprets lots of signals as threats. And those threats stimulate the amygdala, and through the vagus nerve, the signals going up and down from the heart to the brain and vice versa. And this all happens far faster than we process our thoughts, which is why feelings are so important and have such a big impact in the way we work.
And I think that focus on the heart is going to be part of the activity that we're going to share with leaders now, with regards to how they can actually reset back into coherence. Through that sort of conscious awareness of where they're at.
Should we do that now?
I think that works well, Dave. Do you want to touch there? Yeah.
So we wanted to share a skill with you today, and as we go forward through these webinars, we will share more and more very practical, very tangible tools and skills that you can use. And we're very deliberately starting with the I, because I can't stress enough that that's the most important to get right first, but we'll move on and cover lots of skills in the we space as well.
And I think it's a good point just to mention there, Dave, that we're not just talking about ourselves in that sense. We're talking about other experts coming in to speak to us around those areas, and also the fact that it's a weekly webinar. And if you just want to use it for half an hour for yourself, we're absolutely fine with you muting us and pretend you're listening, and taking that half an hour for your own time as well. Sorry, just to throw that in there before we
That's good.
go into the task.
Okay, so let me talk about the breathe skill. And this is probably, very basic, addressing the physiology, and probably, one of the most important of all the skills that we talk about. So breathe is an acronym, and it stands for breathe rhythmically, evenly, and through the heart every day. So let me explain what I mean by that. So breathe, obviously. Rhythmically means if we take 4 seconds to breathe in or 5 seconds to breathe in, then we take the same amount of time to breathe out. So it should be very rhythmical in and the same amount of time breathing out. Evenly simply means we shouldn't be going, yeah, we should try and take the breath in very evenly throughout the 4 or 5 seconds and out very evenly at the same time. Through the heart, so breathe rhythmically, evenly, and through the heart. So as you're breathing in, breathe, feel like you're warming your heart with the breath as it comes in. So breathe through the heart and focus on the heart. And as you breathe out through the heart. And those are the 3 most important things: rhythmical, even, and through the heart. And the last E is every day. And I'll talk a bit later about how you can practice every day to bring this to life. So we thought we'd just give this a go. This might feel incredibly weird, but believe me, this is an incredibly powerful skill. So we thought we'd just take a minute and have a go. And please come along with us. So, Matt's going to have a go, and I will sort of guide him and you through it. So there's a wave pattern on the screen. The idea is that as the waves going up, breathe in, and as the waves going down, breathe out. So we'll just take a minute now. If you can, shut your eyes, ideally. If you're in a quiet space, that makes it ideal also. And when you're ready, so on the next wave up, we'll start. So as the wave goes up, breathe in through the heart, and then breathe out as the wave goes down. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in, remember, through the heart always, and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Remember, as you're breathing in, try and warm the heart with your breath, and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. So that was a minute. Matt, how did that feel for you?
It always calms me down. I've been privileged enough to have had that training for a while now from yourself, Dave. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel it across the Zoom connection. I can hear it in your voice.
I think you can pick it up in the tone of the voice. Naturally goes a little bit deeper and a little bit calmer. I can feel the actual physiology of the body change. I've certainly sunk into the chair some more. And it will be interesting if anyone wants to put their own experience on the chats, just to share that it's not just the two of us sort of creating this, that it's a very real experience, and we want to check that experience works for you with Beneath the Waves on YouTube as well. And obviously you can share that with your team. I can put that link onto the show notes as they go up. But it's always an experience that works really well for me. I see comments like refreshing. It was so relaxing. There's a real sort of typical theme coming up in the chat there. Yeah, very relaxing. So good to know that other people are tapping into that and just relaxing. And I think setting that kind of challenge to yourself. We're in a new routine as leaders. We're at home or not in school as much. And it's how do we start to set that routine within ourselves? So Dave, have you got any advice for us on how you put that into practice?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so this is like any skill. As with any skill, you have to practice, and ideally start somewhere quiet, and ideally somewhere where you can close your eyes. But as you get better at it, you'll be able to do it in noisy environments with your eyes open, and eventually, when you develop this skill a lot further, you'll be able to use it even while you're having an argument with somebody. So I typically use it if I think I'm going into a difficult meeting or about to have a difficult phone call. I'll breathe for a minute or two beforehand. I can breathe in meetings if I feel myself moving from a coherent state into a chaotic state. When you feel your mind's a bit jumbled, you can't think straight, you can't remember things that are going on. And in terms of practicing, have a go. Ideally try and do it every day. So hopefully we did a minute today. If you didn't join in, maybe try afterwards to do a minute, and then try and do 2 minutes tomorrow and 3 minutes on Wednesday, and so on, and build it up that way as a minimum. And hopefully you'll all join us next week at the same time. And by then, ideally, you should be doing 6 or 7 minutes a day, if you can. And start somewhere quiet with your eyes shut if you can. But if you feel comfortable, experiment with trying it in different environments. Try it when there's a bit of noise around you. Try it with your eyes open, and have a go. So that's what we really encourage you to do.
And I think with that, when you're doing that, and it ties into next week's subject, which will be more around the emotional understanding of emotional intelligence and those emotions. I think just taking a moment as a school leader to pat yourself on the back and say, the courage that you've shown over the past month has been incredible. And courage is the word that I think is the best way to describe what leaders in schools have done, because they've done it in the most incredible way to really push through whole new barriers of change, whilst having to have the complete resilience and courage to be able to face that and manage what are a whole host of demands upon them. So just take a moment to reflect on yourself as well, if you can. But I think that sort of feeds into next week's session, when we look around the understanding of ourselves through our emotional framework as well.
And as we said earlier, we're deliberately starting with the I skills, but we will move on to talk about how we manage the we. I mean, in this crazy world where everyone's working from home, or most people are working from home, how do you maintain team cohesion through that time? How do you all work together in an effective way? So we'll bring you again lots of practical, tangible tools in that area as well. And as Matt said, we're going to invite some experts. So Dr. Alan Watkins will come perhaps next week, maybe the week after. We'll bring some experts from education. So we'll mix it up a bit. Yeah. But also, I think give us your ideas. Did you like that? Was it helpful? What would you like to see more of? We'll put some emails up in a minute of how you can contact us.
Yeah, and just to say, we're going to leave the chat room open for 5 minutes at the end of the meeting as well. So if you've got any questions there, it'll give myself and Dave a chance to just review what you've put up and how we can get back to you, whether we're on Zoom.
One we should finish on, Matt. Somebody said, Jacqueline, have you built that practice into your school's day, Matt? Nice.
Yes. One. Yes. Whether it's in the whole school's day or not, you'll have to ask some of my staff that are on the chat this evening. So I'll let them answer that one. But with regards to our own senior leadership team, very much we've looked to build that in as many times as possible at the beginning of meetings and key points throughout the week in which we know that we need it. And we're also able to openly challenge each other to take a minute and breathe with each other when we do that. So it's certainly been embedded in the leadership team. That very much part of our wellbeing curriculum that we offer as part of the school has mindfulness and breathing in there. But I think it's just important to touch on the fact that mindfulness isn't necessarily what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is rhythm. And I think that's the real key. Not that mindfulness can't be that, but just to mention that the rhythm is the real key. So just to really focus on, we hope that you've taken something from this week. It's our first show, and the aim was to really sort of touch on that Viktor Frankl quotes that between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And we hope that you have had a little bit of growth and a little bit of freedom this week. So thank you very much from myself and Dave. And you've been watching and listening to Beneath the Waves.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening.
And thank you, Dave.
Yeah, no, thanks, Matt.